Hey everyone, it is Natalie from Being Intentionally Creative, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm not really sure how this is going to work out because it's not something I've done before, but it is something that I've been wanting to do. So before I get going on that, I just want to show you, just so that you don't do this. So you see this beautiful little cup here that's got this stick holding, like just stuck in there. So with my last project I had done, not the last, and it's not one you've seen, but the last thing I've worked on here on my own, I made up 80 mils of clear resin to put some coatings on some of my coasters and whatnot. Well, I made up way too much. It started to cure. This is one of the cups that goes with my debubbler, which is now ruined. I guess maybe if I had not let the stick in there, I could still use this, but I did, and it's stuck. But I just wanted to show you, never make up too much resin. Make up what you need, and I know better. I seriously know better. But I didn't heed my own advice, and this is what has happened. So I'm down one of these cups now. No, not a big deal. I just thought I would let you know, don't do this. Just don't. So I'm going to end up throwing that out. It's gone. Now, let's get on to our project. I was in Michael's about 2 weeks or so ago. They've got some of their Easter stuff out now. These are two pieces that I picked up. They are by Make Market. They had a buy one, get one free on. I wanted to buy them because I thought it might be an interesting project to use resin or ceramic resin in these pieces to decorate them up. The one we're going to work with is the rabbit, and this one I'm gonna save for later. What I wanted to point out to you, which I think is kind of important if you're going to be picking these up, is they have at the back of these the piece of string and these tiny little staples that they put into the back. Now, I'm normally very careful when I pick up things like this to make sure they're not damaged, and obviously as you can see with this one, it is damaged. I should have paid a little more attention to that, but I didn't. It won't hurt what I'm trying to do with this piece, but I just thought, like, take the time to check to make sure that you don't have any damage, like we do at the side here on this one as well. It wasn't done, but I was sort of focusing on the front being okay versus really paying attention to the back. So that's something you may want to do. And I just thought I would show you now. What did I use? Oh, where did it go? Okay. To get the staple out. Ooh, and I bent it. I didn't even notice that until just now. I used this to ply out the staple, and I'm just noticing now that I've bent this by doing that. So find something that's not going to bend as easily as this has, so you can pry it out. It was sort of the only tool I had available, that's why I used it. So I'm going to throw that out because I don't need either one of those pieces right now. Anyway, we're not going to do this one, so I'm going to put this off to the side. We're going to work with this one, and actually it's got a big dent in there, but having said that, it's nothing I need to sort of bother with. How are we going to do this? Well, I had a couple of ideas. I pulled out my Sharpie markers, which I showed you a couple of videos ago. We're going to use some of these paint Sharpies on this piece, and the three colors I want to use are the blue, green, and the yellow. No, that's not right. I don't want the blue. I want the purple. Okay, so we're going to use those three colors, and I want to use those for the flowers that are on the rabbit. I also want to use different colored paints. So I've got a vanilla out, I've got an ivory, and this is a paint pour. I have a white, and then I also want to have some sparkle on this. So this is the Enchanted Shimmer by Deco Art. I want to get this painted up, and then what I want to do is use a clear UV resin, maybe with some sparkly in it, not 100% sure, to seal this up. Now, the one thing I was a little concerned about and didn't know how, like, I don't know how well they have glued this together. I'm assuming probably pretty good, but I'm not 100% sure. what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this guy all painted up the way I want him, and then I figured I'd take some of this clear coat Deco Art and seal it up before I put the UV resin on top of it, just because I'm not 100% sure if I have to worry about anything leaking or not. And that was really the only reason I wanted to do it. For these guys, it doesn't matter to me because I'll just very carefully put the UV resin on top. And I can't say for sure right now whether we will do UV resin around the whole outside of this guy, but we might. So what I want to start with is I want to start with the white, or a mixture of whites, to color this guy in and do my bestest not to, get onto the flowers. If I do, I don't think it's a big deal because I think the markers or the paint pens will cover it up properly. And I've got myself out 3 different brushes. I figure I had thought originally of mixing the colors all together and seeing what I got, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to take some colors and just sort of play around a little bit with how this is going to look. I thought the ivory and the vanilla would kind of be cool colors so that it's not a stark white rabbit. And let me see what I can put some colors into, just for sake. Now I won't make you sit through doing all of this, but I just thought I'd take you through some of it, and we would see what we can do, how we can make this guy look cool. Why not? I guess if I have all the colors out, then it'll make it easier for me, won't it? And some of these paints have been hanging around for way too long. Back in my paint pour days, I was, I got every color imaginable. Always like some sparkle in it. So let's see what we can do. I think, as I say, I'm just going to randomly do this and try and do my best to get the paint where I really want it to be, and see if I can't sort of do the edges well and see how it turns out. Now granted, you could paint your rabbit whatever color you wanted. It doesn't have to be the colors I'm using. If you wanted to do something really kind of fun. And I picked out the different paint brushes because I wanted to be able to get or do as good of a job as I possibly could without making too much of a mess of things. I wasn't going to do too many coats. Like I think I'll only really do 1 coat. I'm not sure I need more than 1 coat on this. And I guess I could have done my ears pink on the inside here, but and the one thing that I've noticed when I'm doing something like, you sometimes have to go in different directions to get the paint into all the spots that you want to. So we're just, like I said, I'm just going to randomize this. And I thought, I haven't done a wood piece like this in this way before, so I thought, well, I want to do something a little different, and if it gives you guys ideas, then hey, that's brilliant, right? I think that's sometimes what we need, is we need different ideas that we can then expand on. I think that's important. And I get bored easily, so every once in a while I think, oh, I've got to come up with some different idea for myself and for you. Because it does, after a while, it gets boring. Oops. Okay. Now I'm not, as I said, I'm not going to keep you around for all of this painting, because I'm going to want to take my time getting up and around the edges and making sure I cover everything up. And there's some dark spots there, so I'm going to want to do my best to cover those up. I could have put a primer on, like a gesso primer, but that doesn't really, I didn't want to do that. So yes, that might be a good idea depending on what you're doing. Again, how much time do you want to spend on it and whatnot. So alrighty. Okay, and then for around the, so I'm debating whether or not I want to do the sides. I may just leave it like that and not bother with the sides. So let's get some of this done and see if I can keep it from getting over the edges. Yeah, now I'm going to get really nitpicky on this. And sometimes if you go the opposite way and brush it, you can do it without having it slide down the sides, but sometimes that doesn't work very well either. Alrighty then. I'll bring it back when I go to do the flowers and whatnot, so we can see together how that's going to play out for us. But as I say, I don't think you need to sit and watch me, you know, fully paint the rabbit. So I'll bring you back once I've got that all done and we start working on the flowers and see how that looks. Okay, that took a little bit of time, which I expected fully. What do I want to talk about? Okay, I have, as I said, I used the 4 different paints that I had around the edge, and you should be able to see it in that angle. I put the, what did I put? I put the Enchanted Shimmer by DecoArt around, and then I went in around the insides and I put some of it in there as well, and then sort of randomly placed it throughout because I thought it would make nice to have it shimmer a little bit. Okay, the other thing I did was I carefully went around the edges. I always like having something, a pointer if you will, under here, and I filled it in. Now it's not a perfect job by any stretch of the imagination. You can still see some of the wood. I did not fill in all the spots. I left some of them brown. Again, that's something, you know, you as the artist get to choose what you want to do. The other reason I'm glad that I didn't do the flowers first is because I got paint up on top of some of these spots, and I kind of figured that was going to happen. As much as I was careful, I figured that's okay. And what we'll do is we'll do some of the coloring now of the flowers, and that shouldn't take me very long. And then we can see whether or not I'll have to go over it a second time just because it's wood and it's soaking in. So we'll have to see how that works out for me. And then what we'll do is we'll seal, and I'm hoping when I do the sealing of it, it'll be sort of easy, and I can maybe, I think do it all just to help with the resin sitting on top and not soaking into the wood. I was also thinking too with these that what might be fun is once I have these done, because I have colored resin, UV resin, that I could go over top of it. I think some of it is fairly translucent, maybe not totally, and just sort of accent it a little differently than just doing the clear UV resin, which is what I was thinking of doing. I do have a white UV resin. I'm hesitant to use it because I don't know how it's going to impact the painting that I've done on the inside. So we can maybe have a look at that. I'm sitting on the fence very much on that one. So let's get some coloring done here and see what we can do. I did do inside these leaves here, I did paint it with the whites and beiges or the vanilla and whatnot. I'm trying to debate whether or not if I do UV resin, if I put the green in there or not. I'm sort of undecided on that. So if you're sitting there, or you can comment what you think you would do in my case. So let's get some of this painted. I don't know why I'm testing it out. So that's what our green's going to look like. And it might be kind of neat to use the colored UV resins just to get more of an effect on this. So we'll see how good my painting skills are. And we may have to go over these a couple of times. And that's why I wondered about doing the colored UV resins on this. And I kind of messed up over here a little bit. I was trying to figure out where this leaf went and didn't do a very good job. So we'll do the best we can. That's sort of the gist of this. And I look at doing something like this and I think, okay, I may not get it, you know, as nice as I might on the first go, but at least if I do it again, I have an idea of what to do, how to do it. And again, so it's sort of it's a play, it's an experiment. Let's see what we can do with it. And if you hear a fan in the background, I have my heater on. It's I'm one of these people, when I was growing up, my dad always kept the temperature relatively low in the winter time. You know, we were comfortable, and it was always one of those, well, if you're cold, put on a sweater or something like that. Well, in my basement, as I've mentioned before, it does get chilly down here, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'd been outside blowing some snow today, and I thought, you should have put on your heater before you went outside, but I didn't. So we've got it going now, and if you hear that in the background, or a noise in the background, that is what that is. Alright, I'm just gonna... Okay. I like how easily these are going on. Now these will be leaves, so I will do these green. I'm going to do it green on this one, but on this piece here, I'm going to treat it the same as this one. I'm going to make those what I'll call buds. I'm going to make them either yellow or purple. It's almost at a time like this when I wish I had some more colors to work with. I do have some Posca pens, paint pens, which I could maybe go get and see about, you know, working with a little bit more color, because some of the ones I've got over there, they're metallic, and I haven't really done a lot with them. Now granted, I don't know how the two would play together. Apologize for sniffling. Yeah, just gotta move this. Now, because this is part of a flower, and you know what? You can paint this however you want, right? That's the beauty. You know, we don't have to stick with traditional colors. We can do this whatever color we want. And I guess if maybe what I'll do is I will get a couple of those Posca pens, because for me it would be nice to sort of see how this is going to work. You know, if we did put some of the Posca pen colors over top of what I've got here. Okay, so I'm going to just make that a little bit thicker down there at that end. Now I have to admit, I like the way this is covering up the wood, whereas my regular paint's not as good. Like, I had to go over it a couple of times just to get... Oh, again, I apologize. I should have blown my nose before I started this video up again. But yeah, these pens are doing a nice job as far as covering. Now, I have some fine tips over there, which I may see about doing some of the brown that I didn't paint. So, you know, where some of these are, I might go in with one of my finer pens. I keep looking at these leaves here, wondering about putting colored resin in them. That might be an idea. Alrighty. These Sharpies, these are doing a nice job. I think what I'll do is I'll bring the screen down to the bottom because the whole thing wouldn't be yellow. There, that's better. All right, so maybe I'll do these yellows since those ones are yellow. Yeah, I'm liking how that's looking. I keep looking at my blue over here, wondering if I want to bring that into the mix, or my red. I think we'll do these three purple, and then I'm going to have to make a decision about how I want what I want to do with the other two. They're different shapes, so I'd kind of like to do them a different color. But yeah, these are soaking in nicely. Like, I'm pleased with this. And also the nice thing is that they had mentioned on the package that these don't bleed, which I really like too. Like, if you want to do something of a blending, then, you know, that would be cool. Actually, that gives me an idea, because I have some other markers that are glitter there's the spectrum markers that I've got that might lend themselves to being used on this piece. Okay, so we'll do these two. I'm kind of thinking maybe I'll do, well, the red would be a nice contrast too, though. I was thinking I'll just do the other ones blue, but the red might be a nice contrast to this, so I think maybe I'll use the red marker. And the other thing I like about these markers is, with some markers, when I'm using them on something like this, I'm going to say they spit because of the way they are going across the wood. But these aren't. I mean, these aren't putting dots, like spreading any paint anywhere but where I'm putting it. So that's nice too. I feel like I need to dress these these up. And then I was thinking about for the rabbit, I wondered about putting an eye on him. I hope I'm still in this well enough for you guys to see. And I think what I like too that it's not bleeding is it's not going into this outer rim, because I wouldn't want that. Now what we might do as well, as I'm thinking about this a little bit, is I might not, because of the paint, these paint pens, I'm wondering how much they'll act as a bit of a sealer for these flowers. So I may not seal these, and more so just do the inside there. And the reason I'm really thinking about doing the inside is because, again, as I say, I don't know how well these are glued down. I mean, I definitely wouldn't be able to pull it apart, but I'm not 100% sure on, you know, how well they're glued down. But these, you know, these flowers that I'm painting, I mean, they're thick enough too that I don't think it would seep in too much. All right. Okay, so that's where we're at. And one of the good things too is that if you rotate this around, you can see where you might need to just kind of go over edges and whatnot. All right. I'll take a better look at that now once I'm off camera. And I might, you know, see if I can't very carefully, like with these tips being as thick as they are, you know, sort of going around the edges is going to be a bit of a challenge for me. So I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. So that's where we are now. And I'm going to carefully, without taking you with me. So I have these, oops. These are Spectrum Noir. I believe it's Spectrum Noir. Okay, so these are Spectrum Noir. So let's try and put a little bit of some color on here and just see what this does. Because it's got glitter in it. And I'll just see how it looks. And I want to be really careful with these, I really don't want to get any of this stuff on my white. All right. And again, I think this paint may be helpful in just keeping things from bleeding over, which would be good. All right, so that did make my red a little darker. So I'm gonna want to let this stuff dry properly. Now I do have a green in here, so maybe what we can do is see what we can do with this green. Let's see, maybe about just shading around the edges on this. Trying to be ever so careful. Try not to get it on the yellow. Yeah, it's really soaking into that green. So I think what I'll do is I'll just add a little bit to the other ones, but I'm gonna see about my Posca pens and see what I've got from that perspective, and I will also look to see what I have from my UV colors, because I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'll have to see about the colors, because if I've got a translucent, I think that will work well. I have purple, but I know this isn't going to be, so let's just see about doing the outer edges of this. Yeah. And sometimes this stuff comes out really fast, so keep that in mind if you get them. Again, just play. Just make sure I'm in. I look up and then I go, ah, you're not in camera. Okay, I won't do any more. I will, as I say, I'll go off and I'll see what I've got from a Posca pen perspective. And a UV. And we'll see if we can't decorate it up a little bit more. Again, see what I like. I mean, I like the glitter aspect of it. All right, so we'll do that. But that's where we're at this point. So kind of cool. Bit of time, needed to do it. But anyway, so I'll be back in a little bit. I got out a couple of other pens, markers, paint markers that I have for doing some stuff. And I think if you're dedicated to wanting to be very specific around doing things, that's fair. Now, I'll show you the pens I use, but I also want to point something out to you. When I was using one of the markers, I accidentally, as you can maybe see there in this particular flower, that I got some of the purple on the white. If you're going to do that, like, I don't know which is best to do, the white first, and I did that so that if I got any white on the colors, I could easily cover up the white. And I did put a little bit of paint on top of the purple, and you can still see through it. So I don't really have the best method. I guess it depends on how particular you are and how detail oriented you want to go with it. Now, I did use this yellow Posca pen to go around some of these yellow flowers, but again, it's going to take you some time, so it depends on how much time do you want to spend on the piece. Okay, and these are water-based. I think I got these at Dollarama. They're called Artist Series, and that's the name on them. So the tip on this, okay, is a lot finer, and probably why I was able to do some of what I did without getting really yellow on the white than this. I was trying to be careful, but unfortunately I got some of the purple on. Just something to be aware of if you're going to use markers, as to how, now if you had if these were two pieces, then you could, do it and then throw it together, glue it together yourself, but they're not. You're going to have to decide how you want to proceed with it. I like how it looks. I had thought, yes, about getting some other markers and maybe doing some different colors on the top. I think I'm going to forego that. Now, what I could potentially do is I'm going to fill in here with green. I want to use a green resin, so I don't know. see again, this tip is going to be too, it's not fine enough to get in here properly. But anyway, so again, something like this, you may have to play a little bit to get the effect that you want with it. So I'm just going to take these markers now and put them off to the side. I haven't gone over the tops of these again with the markers because I don't think I need to. I think these Sharpie paint pens really do, I think they did a really good job covering those up. So something to keep in mind. I sort of wish I had more colors. Maybe at some point if they have them on sale or I can get 40% off, I may get them. Now, as far as working with the UV resin, I'm just trying to think of, I guess I've got these gloves handy, so I'll use these ones. I got out some of my Light Wish colors and I got out some Let's Resin. I wanted to stay away. This is one of the solid colors for Light Wish. I kind of wanted to stay away from the solids only because I don't want to cover up the color that's on top. But I think we're going to sort of test that out so you're aware of what you may or may not want to wish. I know when I first started the video I said let's just do, you know, the coloring and whatnot and then use a clear UV resin, but that doesn't sort of, if you're wanting to be sort of more specific, and we'll see what happens if we use colored. Is it opaque enough? Can we still see the colors through it? I think that'll be helpful. And again, my resins they're cool. But I've also got it on side because I want to try and alleviate any air bubbles. And I'm going to very carefully attempt to get this in where it needs to go and hopefully not get resin where I don't want it. And what we may have to do is put some in here and then move it about. Yeah. Okay, let me get one of my... Now, I have not put the sealer on this, okay? That's another thing I want to, you know, sort of play with this piece is what happens if we don't put the sealer in. See, I got all kinds of air bubbles in that. Yeah, I'm probably going to end up having to move this about with a stick or a dotting tool or something so we can get it moving about. Okay. So get this started in here. I want to do my bestest to avoid some of bubbles because I am running low on my whatever's in the lighters. I have to pick up some more lighters for my work. Okay. So I'll just put the lid back on that. We'll move that about because we don't want it too thick either. And I might need a toothpick to do this. And very carefully we'll just move it along. I'll use my toothpick to get it down into those hard places. This so reminds me of something, and when I was growing up, one Christmas my mom got me something that it was for making flowers. It was metal, and whatever the product was, you would bend the metal to the shape of a flower or a leaf or whatnot, and then you would let this stuff dry. And I wouldn't say it was a resin. I mean, whatever it was like I was young at the time. I was able to do it on my own, but it reminds me of that as I'm doing this now. Sort of similar in nature of, yeah, this process that we're doing right now. I should have some of my other UV resins. Yeah, do not like air bubbles in this stuff. I know, can't avoid it, deal with it. I'll get rid of that. Darn it, I'll get rid of that one in a moment. Now I'm trying to see if I can keep it best just to level it up to the top of this without going over. And because you're dealing with wood here, be very careful. So that's how the green looks in there. So let's use this is my magic resin UV light, and hopefully I'm close enough. I may have to move the rabbit a little bit, and I'm going to hold it up so we're not right on top of it. Just for, and I know they always say you should let this sit and settle for a few minutes. See how good my patience is right now? I'm just trying to make the video so it's not too long. And I got out the white UV resin from Lightwish. We might try that in a couple of places. Again, I don't know how opaque or translucent it's going to be. But I thought, well, let's give it a go. And like I say, I've got some other colors. We may, just do a test to see how it's going to look. And maybe you don't. Maybe you just use clear UV resin. I feel like I might have got an air bubble in there. A couple of them maybe. But that's okay. That's okay. Makes it more interesting. Let's try. Now we've got a lime green and we've got green. You know what? We'll try both of these. I'm just going to lay these down on their side just so I can maybe avoid some air bubbles. And I kind of want to try the white, but I'm not sure where I want to try the white. If we've got a small space, that might be a worthwhile endeavor to try it. And again, I could sort of do a mix and match of using a color and clear to give it sort of different dimensions as well. I mean, I could mix, maybe, I'd be willing to give it a go, mix some of the clear with the colored resin just to see how that might work out for us. I think if I do green on this leaf here, I'm going to have to be really careful doing that. All right. Well, this green down here seems to be our smallest amount of green, so let's see what we can do with that. I'm going to have to move my bunny rabbit around for ease for me. And I'm just going to keep it going on here until I get... Now, I could always put this into a little container, which in some ways might be a bit easier when I'm dealing with something like this. Now that looks pretty opaque to me, that green. Let's what this looks like if I do this one. Okay, where's this screen? Well, it's got some opaqueness to it. Really going to get to try out your skills on something like this. I think there's a bit more color to the Light Wish. So I'm just going to kind of blend it a little bit. Now, get that. And you're going to want to be careful too, because I've got a little bit of it running down into the white. I probably shouldn't have these UV bottles up here on the table, should I? Always like when I'm doing things like this, whatever I'm not using, I like to get it out of the way. I figure if I've finished using something, I should put it away. My paints are still out, mind you. Now you obviously could use two-part epoxy if you wanted on this. I think for the flowers, I would probably be more apt to use UV resin just because you can set it up quicker. I could make two-part for all the white, but I don't know. I just feel like playing with the UV resin. I have it. So yeah, it needs a little bit more time because I'm sort of scratching the UV a little bit. I'm not pressing down on that hard at all. It's set, yes. If we use this, it is set, but I would definitely put it under the Let's Resin and let it set up. Now what I do want to try is, let's see what the yellow does, because I'm kind of curious to know how it's going to come out. And I definitely want to try some of the red. Oops, there we go. Resin all over the place. Boy, that's coming out really fast. So be aware of that. I'm just going to have to be careful, right? Because if I put too much on here, I could end up with a bit of a mess, and I don't want that. So let's just put that. I'm going to put that up right for now. Let me get rid of my air bubbles. Smooth this out. And yeah, I guess I think with this UV resin that I can set it up quickly. If I used two-part epoxy and I decided to run somewhere, I'm going to have more of an issue because than I want to. And I don't think it would matter, again, you know, if you have it at different levels. So you put the yellow on, and then if you got the green a little thinner, I don't think that's going to matter in the grand scheme of things. So I think if anything, at this point, the colored UV resin is actually sort of enhancing. I know it does from the perspective of it being a gloss, but I think it's just enhancing the colors a little bit as well, which is nice. Making it look just a tad more professional. So next what I'll do is I'll quickly do a red and a purple, and then I will we'll do a quick bit of white, maybe in the tail, so we can see how the white's going to look, and then I will finish it up. It is handy having these little lights that you can put sort of around if you have more than one. Especially helpful when you're doing videos like this. All right. Okay, let's try some. We'll do the small purple one. And you could always add some glitter if you wanted to this. I mean, we did that with the Spectrum Noir markers, but you could always add a bit of glitter into your UV resin if you wanted to. Try not to add too much to this, and we'll spread it out before it decides to spread itself out, right? That's the wrong end of this. The Let's resin seems to have a lower viscosity to it, I think, than the Light Wish does, so you'll want to be careful if you're using it to do small parts at once. And I don't really think it, like any of the UV resins, I mean, if I were using a solid color, for sure I would think it would you know, sort of cover up what I'm doing, but from where I am and being able to see this sort of close up, it's not really taking away from those paint markers, which is kind of nice. And I guess if you wanted to be sure that it didn't, you would use a clear. Now I'm getting some, I think, that's starting to slide down between these, a couple of, like right in here. Or maybe it's not, and it's just an illusion. So let's just get that cured. And then quickly do the red. I think doing the outside of this is going to be kind of cool. And depending on how the white looks, I probably would just use the clear, one of the three of the clear that I've got. Probably use the magic resin that I've got because it's my biggest bottle. And I think because we're using the UV, we're curing it as fast as we are, I think there's less likelihood of it sinking into the wood. Not that it may not, but I like to think that the paint is helping as a barrier. And I guess the other nice thing is that you can have multiple colors, and if you've got the UV resin, you don't have to be mixing up all kinds of two-part epoxy. I'm going to put a little bit more on this one, just to make it a little higher than the other ones. Now there's definitely a red color to this. So this color definitely feels like it's going to overtake the other one. So maybe what I'll do is I will use this on this one, and then on the other one I'll just use the clear so that you can see a bit of a comparison. Yeah, because it's definitely got a red hue to it. The next color we'll do is we'll do the white, and then I will meander off and finish it up and do my best just to remember what I put where so that we can do some comparison. It's funny, when I started, I thought this is not going to take a long time. This is taking some time. Right, okay, so we're hard there. Let's get the white out. We'll do the tail, and then we'll see how that works. So I'm curious to know what you think so far. And yeah, I can see air bubbles in the green there, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm not sure how I pulled that off. Definitely air bubbles in that. Okay, and this is definitely white, so I may want to sort of mix it up a little bit with this one, because I'm getting this is a white. More opaque than I thought it may be. And I think because I'm dealing with bigger spaces in this, I may let this just sit for a moment or two. If all leveled out and whatnot. I have to use my toothpick down there. There's a little, there is a crevice through there. And then again, you'd want to be really careful with your movement in between some of these spots so it doesn't get where you don't want it to be. And when I say that, I mean up on top of the flowers. And now I know a little bit of the red, I feel like it's come down into the white area from when I did the red. So again, yeah, being able to do it a color at a time certainly would be helpful. I'm going to try and see if I can drag that through. Yeah, I'm seriously not going to let you sit through while I do this. This is time consuming. Now the other thing I could have done, and I might do it around the ears a little bit, is I have some pink by Let's Resin. I might use a little bit of the white and pink for the ears. Yeah. Okay. And we can always add more to it if we wanted to. And then I would be very careful when you're using your long neck lighter if you're going to be going over pieces that have already been done, so you don't damage it. But so there's our tail. Like that. I could probably put a little bit more white in it, but like I said, I want to be really careful that I didn't go over top of. So let's cure that up. So yeah, this definitely would take some time to complete, depending on how ornate you decided to make the piece. And again, I guess if you wanted to, you could do multiple things at once and then cure it up. That's totally your call. Maybe I should try that with a couple of the pieces, and then I can let you know whether that's a good idea or not. I think, again, it's going to depend on how runny your UV resin is as to whether or not you want to do that. Okay. Always like to test it. So there's where we're at right now. So we've got some white in the tail, which now you can't see the glitter I put, but you know, that's may not be a huge deal. I do have some pink of Let's Resin. What I may do is do a little bit of that in the ear area. And yeah, I'm just trying to debate. I mean, I've got a full container of this white, so I may just, you know, finish it up. But I'll try a little bit of the clear as well, just so we have an idea how that's going to look as well. And I'll use my magic resin. But here's where we're at. I'll bring you back when I've got it all done and we can just see what's what. Welcome back. I feel like you've been gone for a really long time. Anyway, I have done this completely now. I want to show you some of the issues I've had with it. Overall, I like the concept of what I've done, though. I have to say that. I would recommend, and I did not do this at all, so I had mentioned I was going to use the sealer that I have, but I decided not to do that in this piece. This piece has been done completely with no sealer on it. We've painted it, we've used markers on it, but I did not seal anything. You'll notice that I have an eye on this, and the eye moves around, so we can, I don't know how well you're going to see that. But anyways, the eye does move. Just the right size. I glued it down with UV resin. I used a Craftsmart pink that I have, paint pen, to do the ears and a little bit of the nose, just to give it a little more authenticity, if you will. Not sealing it, I think, with using UV resin, I've got some air bubbles happening in the piece. I'll try and point those out a little bit more to you. So I have a big one here. I have one I have some in and around this flower petal. I have one here, and then I had some up here, and like they're throughout. And I'm thinking part of the reason for that is because it is not sealed. So I would recommend sealing the piece before adding resin to it. I don't know, would it be any different if I had used 2-part epoxy? I don't know, maybe. But I think the wood should probably be sealed, only to stop air getting, like, coming up through the wood. They talk about air bubbles when you're stirring your resin, that if you use a popsicle stick, because it's a wood, it's porous, and you can end up with more air bubbles. So I'm going to treat this the same way, and saying that it would probably be better to seal this before you actually pour your, UV or 2-part epoxy resin on top of it. And you could potentially just do that with a very thin coat of UV resin first, and then pour your resin over top of it. There's ways around it, I'm sure. Now, I did the outside. I put resin on that, and I did UV resin. This is all UV resin. There's no 2-part epoxy in this. And what ended up happening was I put a little bit too much. So I had, for example, up here, I don't know how well you'll see that, but in this ear, there was an overpour. It slid into the top of that ear. That's something you're going to want to be. I guess because I was getting, at the end of it, I was getting a little too fast with it, just so I could get it done and show it to you. You'll want to, be a little more careful than what I was doing that. Overall, though, I like the concept of doing something like this. I really want to sort of give this a go with mix to mold to see how different it may be. Again, I'm thinking if I'm going to do that my best bet would be to seal the wood before, because that will be more liquid, and I think it will have more time to soak in. So whether you use a spray, whether you paint on a sealer, I think that's totally up to you, what you do. And perhaps I'll get around to doing a video where I do mix to mold, but for me, I'm going to seal the wood before I do anything. This isn't very heavy, even with the amount of resin I've got in this. Now, I did mix, so up in here, I did white and clear. I did some white and clear in here. I did white here, a bit of white and clear in there. Like, I kind of mixed it up a little bit just to give it a different kind of look. And again, that's totally up to you what you decide to do with it. But I kind of like the concept. Definitely do things differently next time. But I'd love to know in the comments below what you think. If you've done this, I would like to know sort of any tips or tricks you have. And for me, love the concept, think it's a neat idea. I really like the fact that the Sharpie markers worked as well as they did in keeping, like, even with putting the resin on top of it, they kept their color. So that really impressed me. I did mix a couple of the greens together to see, and when I say the greens, I'm talking about a Let's Resin with the Light Wish, just to see what would happen. And I mean, everything's cured up fine, like it's cured. I finished up putting it under my Let's Resin lamp for 5 minutes to cure it up. I'd probably throw this in the window just to give it a little extra, daylight time, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below, because I think it's kind of a cool idea. And as I say, I think if you were to use a sealer on it, there'd probably be less air bubbles in this all the way around. But yeah, I'm glad I took the time to do this, and I hope you find this helpful, and at least I've given you some more sort of tips and tricks on what to potentially, stay away from. Yeah. But that's it. That's all I've got for you on this video. Thank you for showing up and watching, subscribing, commenting. I do love the comments. I like responding to them. And yeah, so stay tuned for the next video. I'm hoping to be doing a deep pour in that video, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Take care. Bye for now.